36 years in solitary confinement, yet his orders still reached the prison yard. 2 correctional officers were killed on the same day in Marion, 1983, a turning point that forced the entire system to tighten its control over prison gangs. By the early 2000s, federal records estimated that the Aryan Brotherhood had around 20,000 members and associates spread across state and federal prisons. Each year, at least 10 to 20 serious assaults within the correctional system were linked to this organization, several of them fatal. They were already held in some of the nation's toughest facilities. But the government eventually had to build something even tougher. Supermax ADX Florence, a place designed for those whose very existence was considered a threat. This is the top 10 most dangerous leaders of the Aryan Brotherhood, the men who made the system build another prison just to lock them away again. Number 10. Edgar William "the Snail" Hevel. On August 28, 1997, inside Lewisburg Federal Prison, 2 inmates, Frank Joyner and Abdul Salam, lost their lives on the same morning. A 3rd inmate was critically injured. Everything happened so quietly and precisely that officers had to review the footage several times just to understand what had taken place. No one saw the person carrying the weapon move between cells. Yet in the investigation files that followed, one name was circled: Edgar "the Snail" Hevel. Inside the Aryan Brotherhood, there were always 2 kinds of men: those who carried out the acts and those who decided who would be targeted. Hevel belonged to the second kind. He didn't play the tough guy. He didn't appear in the spotlight, shout, or make threats. He even avoided confrontation. But whenever the Brotherhood needed something smooth, efficient, and untraceable, they turned to Hevel. In late 1996, a coded message allegedly written by Hevel made its way out: "Ready." Just that single word sent entire units into lockdown. Inmates rushed to hide handmade weapons inside mattresses, names of suspected traitors were marked, and officers were called in for emergency shifts. The terrifying part was this: on nights like that, at least one person usually didn't make it until morning. Back in 1989 at Lompoc, a member said to have forgotten who protected him. Arva Lee, Baby Ray, was eliminated in an internal disciplinary hit. The process was the same: a folded note, a message passed through the right hands, and the rest unfolded automatically. According to court records, at least 3 major homicides were linked to Hevel's command chain: Baby Ray in 1989, and the 2 victims in Lewisburg in 1997. And that was only what came to light. The trial lasted 5 months as prosecutors traced the trail of tiny notes connected to him. They described Hevel as a switch for violence. Once flipped, the system below would activate on its own. The jury returned a guilty verdict, and he was sentenced to life in prison. But when the verdict was read, investigators couldn't shake a single question: how many other switches had been flipped by Hevel without anyone ever realizing? For most inmates, they would never see Hevel face to face, only the aftermath. In a world where lives could be decided by a few lines on a scrap of paper, Edgar "the Snail" Hevel stood as proof that the most dangerous man isn't always the one holding the knife, but the one who writes down the name. Number 9. Christopher Overton Gibson. In June 1993, an inmate at a federal prison was attacked in the yard. Multiple stab wounds, right in front of dozens of witnesses. The attacker escaped, but investigators noticed the one man who didn't run: Christopher Overton Gibson, standing still, watching from start to finish, as if that was exactly what he had been waiting for. That incident taught investigators an important truth: Gibson didn't need to act himself to make violence happen. In the early 1990s, Gibson was known as a loyal soldier of the Aryan Brotherhood, always ready to prove his allegiance through violence. The 1993 case marked his point of no return in the prison hierarchy. Violence had become the only language that mattered, but unlike the hot-headed enforcers around him, Gibson didn't stop there. According to federal records, within a few years, he became part of the command chain, one of the men who ensured that orders from leadership were carried out correctly. When top figures like Barry Mills or Tyler Bingham were locked away in isolation, they needed someone to bridge the gap between command and execution. Gibson filled that role. Orders from the top were often no more than a name, a coded symbol, or a short phrase. Once that message reached Gibson, the outcome was inevitable. The person marked would be attacked, warned, or removed from the yard, and everything happened in silence, just like the way he stood motionless during the 1993 assault. During the RICO trial in 2006, Gibson appeared alongside some of the Brotherhood's most infamous leaders. The indictment described dozens of killings and attempted murders as part of the group's power structure. Gibson was accused of managing the day-to-day operations, assigning people, setting schedules, and deciding levels of punishment. Witnesses testified that when Gibson merely asked about someone's name, that person immediately understood they had crossed a line. That silent influence made him one of the most closely watched inmates by correctional officers. Because in prison, real power doesn't always come from violence. It comes from the ability to make violence happen without saying a word. When Gibson was sentenced to life in prison, perhaps the most unsettling part wasn't the punishment itself. It was the uncertainty. No one could be sure whether the power he once held had truly been cut off. In a world where a single note slipped under a cell door could decide someone's fate, Christopher Overton Gibson was a chilling reminder. The most dangerous man isn't the one who wields the weapon, but the one who ensures it's used at the right moment. Number 8. Michael Patrick Big Mac McElhiney. In 1995, Leavenworth Federal Prison fell into a quiet but intense crisis. More than 1,200 heroin-positive tests in just 12 months. One inmate collapsed after a stabbing in the exercise yard, chaos erupted, and everyone scattered. But investigators focused on the one man who stood still, watching everything with a blank expression. His name was Michael Patrick Big Mac McElhiney. In late 1994, Big Mac had been transferred from USP Marion to Leavenworth. Within months, inmates began whispering that he was the boss of the white guys. He didn't need loud tattoos or fights to prove power. His authority was shown by the way others automatically stepped aside when he walked past. Big Mac's first move was to take control of every profitable corner of the yard: gambling, prison-made alcohol, and debt collection. Once he dominated those sources of money, he expanded into heroin trafficking inside the facility. A small dose was enough to trap an inmate in debt. And once in debt, obedience followed. Couldn't pay? Then the price was labor or personal safety. At that time, the prison's medical staff reported a rising number of overdoses each week. The flow of heroin matched perfectly with Big Mac's rise to dominance inside Leavenworth. But his real danger wasn't in the drugs. It was in how he handled people. On August 25, 1995, Ledger was fatally attacked in the yard. According to federal records, a higher-ranking figure named Sahakian had ordered that Ledger be taken care of. The man chosen to arrange the attack was Big Mac. He selected Gregory Story as the executioner, set the timing, and positioned himself far enough away to avoid direct involvement, yet close enough to make sure the order was carried out. When investigators arrived, the story shifted into self-defense. Witnesses avoided questions, statements conflicted, but the pattern was clear. McElhiney had planned the entire thing. In 1997, Story pleaded guilty to a reduced charge. Big Mac, meanwhile, continued running the yard as if nothing had happened. It took 3 separate trials, from 1999 to 2002, for prosecutors to finally corner him on federal charges of conspiracy to distribute heroin inside the prison. He received a 30-year sentence, just for the business side. His alleged role in the Ledger incident remained buried within broader Aryan Brotherhood case files. Big Mac wasn't the man who carried the knife. He was the one who decided where the knife should go. He didn't need to shout or threaten. If someone owed him money or broke the rules, that person would quietly disappear from the yard's safe list. In prison, violence creates fear. But money, debt, and rules, those create lasting power. McElhiney understood that better than anyone in Leavenworth during the 90s. For him, the knife was only the final tool. The real danger lay in the system of control that ruled the entire yard. Number 7. John Stinson. One word: approved. The phone call ended. Days later, an inmate was found in the yard. According to investigators, those secret phone calls often lasted less than a minute, yet they could change everything inside a prison day. The man making those decisions was John Youngster Stinson. Stinson was never a loud or flashy member of the Aryan Brotherhood, but over 3 decades, he was identified as one of 3 top figures within the California branch, the commission that approved punishments and decided who would live or die. By the early 1990s, Stinson was already part of that inner circle. Once he gave approval, others would handle the rest. Court records and recorded calls showed that Stinson used contraband phones inside his cell to run operations. Each short call could mean a beating, an expulsion from rank, or a fatal disciplinary act, all without him ever stepping foot in the yard. That was how a B-power worked: leaders behind bars, orders flowing outward. Beyond his authority over discipline, Stinson also took a cut from drug networks and the taxes AB imposed on those who wanted to do business inside prisons or on the streets. Those who earned money for the organization received protection. Those who didn't, or who tried to act independently, quickly discovered that protection no longer applied. His way of handling conflict was simple. If someone caused problems, Stinson only had to say the word, "handle it." And once he did, no one wanted to be the next name mentioned. In February 2025, Stinson was convicted under RICO charges after a major federal operation targeting the AB network in California. Prosecutors said he held the final say over disciplinary actions and coordinated funds and contraband among allied groups. On May 19, 2025, he was sentenced to 20 years in federal prison, added on top of the years he had already served in the state system. But his conviction didn't bring peace of mind, because as history has shown with the Aryan Brotherhood, once the prison doors close, the phones start ringing. Stinson's true power was never about where he was. It was about who was still willing to act after each phone call. For 30 years, many orders carried out across California's prisons came from people who never even met Stinson in person. They only knew one thing: he approved it. In the world of the Aryan Brotherhood, the right position holds more weight than any yard fight. And John Stinson held that position for more than 30 years. He didn't need to show up. He only had to agree, and someone else would no longer be safe. Number 6. Daniel "Danny" Troxell. On April 30th, 2024, a jury in Sacramento returned a guilty verdict. The target, named James Mickey, had been approved for elimination from inside a prison cell. The man behind that decision was Daniel "Danny" Troxell. From a room locked 23 hours a day, his orders still traveled through contraband phones and always reached the right person. Troxell wasn't remembered for a single bloody event. What made him survive for more than 3 decades in California's prison system was his ability to outlast every crackdown while keeping his influence intact. In the early 1990s, when California enforced long-term segregation, the SHU program, to isolate gang leaders, many figures from the Aryan Brotherhood vanished from the power map. Troxell did not. He adapted, shifting from control through violence to control through rules, structure, and status within the organization. If someone wanted to become an official member of the Aryan Brotherhood, that name had to cross Troxell's desk. The process made no noise, but it decided who would gain rank and who would become expendable when things went wrong. Between 2011 and 2016, as the Brotherhood expanded its narcotics networks both inside and outside the prisons, federal investigators described Troxell as the one overseeing the chain of authority: which yard belonged to whom, how taxes were collected, and how disputes were settled. During small internal meetings, hit lists were read aloud. Short, direct, and always finalized with Troxell's word: do it or drop it. The case of James Mickey was only one of several examples presented by prosecutors. When Mickey was seen as violating Brotherhood rules, the decision moved up the chain. Troxell knew exactly what would happen once that name reached the wrong list. That's why his charge was conspiracy to commit murder, a crime reserved for those who decide, not those who execute. Another case mentioned in court involved Brant Daniel, a member accused of breaking internal law. The commission, including Troxell, approved disciplinary action. The attack happened shortly after, following only a few quiet words. As for money, it moved through a familiar cycle. Drugs in, cash out, shares passed upward. Anyone who disrupted that flow was removed. Troxell didn't need to make threats. Everyone in the system already knew, if he didn't like you, your days in the yard were numbered. In June 2019, federal prosecutors announced a sweeping indictment against 16 Aryan Brotherhood members. Troxell was among the highest-ranking defendants. At 71, he was still influencing decisions that could cost people their lives. On April 30th, 2024, he was convicted under RICO and conspiracy to murder charges. On February 18th, 2025, he was scheduled for sentencing, the maximum penalty being life imprisonment. The irony is sharp. Troxell once sued the state over prolonged solitary confinement, yet continued to exercise control from within that same isolation. Over 30 years, California prisons changed policies, facilities, cameras, and phone systems. But Troxell's voice still carried, quietly, invisibly. Yet once something was approved by him, everything else unfolded right on schedule. Number 5. Ronald Yandell. On August 15, 2015, at CSP Sacramento, an inmate was fatally attacked in the yard. The person who gave the order wasn't there. He was locked in a cell 23 hours a day, and he spoke just one sentence, a sentence that sealed another man's fate. Do it. and you'll earn your way into the Aryan Brotherhood. That name was Ronald Yandell. Yandell didn't strike himself. He turned killing into a recruitment process for the Aryan Brotherhood. Complete the mission, and you could become a full member. In that world, taking a life became a reward, and that's why Yandell was considered one of the most dangerous leaders of the California branch. According to investigative records from 2011 to 2016, Yandell and his associates managed heroin and meth operations from inside prison walls. He used contraband phones to direct outside networks. Who held the product, who collected money, and who would face punishment for disrupting the flow. Drugs were smuggled through layers of intermediaries, vacuum-sealed snacks, visitors, and even fake legal assistants. The rule was simple. The product must move, the money must return, and leadership always got its share. Anyone who broke the cycle was dealt with. When inmate James Mickey was suspected of betraying the organization, the order for retaliation was approved. Investigators never found Yandell at the scene, but secret phone calls revealed who had given the command. During the 2019 RICO trial, prosecutors identified Yandell as one of the top 3 leaders of the California Aryan Brotherhood, men with the authority to approve killings. The court record listed him as responsible for the fatal attack on Hugo Pinnell and for conspiracies to kill 5 others: Kenneth Johnson, James Mickey, Paul Diaz, Michael Tripp, and Doug Maynard. These weren't rumors. They were real names, real cases, and real orders sent from a locked cell. Yandell entered the California Department of Corrections in 2004, serving 65 years to life for a prior homicide. Instead of losing power, he rose even higher within the Brotherhood's structure. The deeper his confinement, the stronger his influence became. Even while facing new federal charges, Yandell didn't stop. In late 2024, CDCR accused him of attacking 2 correctional officers, an alleged attempt on their lives. Security was tightened, restrictions increased, yet his reach remained. On April 30th, 2024, a jury found him guilty of murder in aid of racketeering, 5 counts of conspiracy to murder, and multiple narcotics offenses. On December 18th, 2024, the court sentenced him to 2 consecutive life terms in federal custody. His chance of release? None. But what truly frightened investigators wasn't the sentence. It was the question that followed. How many of his decisions were still waiting to be carried out? Because with Ronald Yandell, when there are people willing to kill just to earn membership, the one who approves those acts is the most dangerous man in the prison. Number 4. Tyler, the Hulk Bingham. In 1997, at USP Lewisburg, a racial conflict exploded in the prison yard and ended with 2 black inmates losing their lives. Official reports called it a riot, but investigators quickly realized it wasn't spontaneous. The orders had come from thousands of miles away, from a solitary cell inside ADX Florence, home to Tyler, the Hulk Bingham, one of the top leaders of the Aryan Brotherhood's federal branch. According to federal documents, a coded message written in invisible ink was sent out. Once it reached the right yard, it became the trigger for violence. That was Bingham's method. No need to show up, no need to shout, no need to even leave his cell. One order went out, and the yard took care of the rest. Bingham rose to power during a period when the federal prison system was sharply divided by race. In that environment, he turned fear into a tool. Internal letters between AEB leaders, often written in hidden code, discussed control of territory, which yard belonged to whom, which prison needed stricter discipline, and who was considered a threat to be removed. When a name appeared on one of those lists, it usually meant that person didn't have much time left. Prosecutors described Bingham as the final approver in the Brotherhood's federal decision chain. His influence could be traced through a decade of coordinated attacks across federal facilities. His orders were quiet, but their results were unmistakable. Whenever internal disputes or territorial tensions arose, a single coded message from ADX could turn the yard into chaos. Inside the system, inmates called him the Hulk. Not because of his size or violence on the yard, but because he could make the entire system tremble while sitting alone in a concrete box. Rivals understood that if Bingham made a decision, someone else would pay the price. That ability to control violence from isolation made him a central figure in one of the largest RICO cases ever brought against the Aryan Brotherhood, with charges tied to more than 17 killings or attempted murders. Eventually, Bingham was sentenced to life in prison and confined permanently at ADX Florence, the most secure facility in the United States. But that sentence didn't erase the reality he had proven. One decision from a man locked away 23 hours a day could still change the color of a yard thousands of miles away. Number 3. Barry Byron, the Baron Mills. In 1979, a black inmate collapsed in the yard at USP Atlanta during exercise time. The weapon, a razor blade hidden in a plastic handle, was common in targeted attacks. The man suspected of orchestrating it wasn't yet a leader, just an ambitious inmate on the rise. Barry Byron, the Baron Mills. From that moment, his path to power was paved in the blood of those deemed on the wrong side. Mills joined the Aryan Brotherhood in the early 1970s, when the group was still forming its internal structure. He was later accused of killing an African-American inmate in 1979 at USP Atlanta. When the prison system began tightening control, many gang figures lost influence. Mills used that moment to evolve, shifting from physical dominance to command-level power, where violence could be triggered with a word rather than a weapon. His operations were marked by invisible ink letters passed secretly between prisons, tucked into books, stitched into clothing, or hidden in family mail. When those messages reached their intended hands, just a few words like "follow the plan" were enough to set a group of armed inmates into motion. No shouting, no meetings. One line from Mills carried extraordinary weight in the federal prison world. In the federal RICO case from 2002 to 2006, prosecutors described Mills as the architect behind a violent campaign against the DC Blacks, a rival racial alliance across several federal prisons. His strategy was direct. To control narcotics, protection, and profit, the rival group had to be eliminated. Mills's solution: authorize violence. At the top of the Aryan Brotherhood's federal hierarchy, Mills didn't just decide who would die. He decided who controlled each yard, how money flowed, who enforced discipline, who could attend leadership meetings, and who would be cut off. That structure kept every inmate on edge, constantly wondering, is my name next? Fear alone kept order. One correctional officer described him this way: he didn't yell, he didn't rage, but everyone knew he could change the whole yard before dinner. The 2002 federal operation against the AB charged 40 defendants and linked the group to at least 16 murders or attempted murders inside federal prisons. The jury could not reach a unanimous death sentence, so Mills received multiple life terms, permanently confined in Supermax. In 2018, Barry the Baron Mills died in prison. There was no official statement, no last words. The justice system had locked him away, but his legacy remained. Proof that one order from the shadows could still draw blood in any federal yard. In the Brotherhood, some men killed to prove themselves. Mills did it to keep the machine running. His danger lay in this simple fact: he didn't hold the knife. He decided who did and when. Number 2. Clayton A. Fountain. On October 22, 1983, 2 deadly attacks unfolded within hours at USP Marion. 2 federal correctional officers lost their lives. The incident forced a nationwide lockdown and ultimately led to the creation of America's most restrictive prison model, the Supermax. One of the names tied to that day was Clayton Anthony Fountain. Fountain had once served in the Marine Corps before drifting into crime and ending up in the federal system. What made him infamous wasn't his past outside prison, but what he became inside, one of the most lethal enforcers behind bars. In the early 1980s, Fountain was transferred to USP Marion, the facility that replaced Alcatraz as the highest security prison in the country. There, he became associated with the Aryan Brotherhood and quickly proved his value. When he was assigned a target, he didn't fail. Before the events at Marion, Fountain had already been linked to another inmate's death elsewhere in the system, showing a clear pattern of calculated violence. Tensions between the Aryan Brotherhood and the rival group known as the DC Blacks grew by the day inside Marion. October 22, 1983, became the breaking point. That morning, fellow AB member Thomas Silverstein fatally attacked Officer Merle Klutz. Hours later, Fountain carried out a second assault, taking the life of Officer Robert L. Hoffman. 2 federal officers killed on the same day, inside one of the most secure prisons in America. It was a shock that changed federal corrections forever. Afterward, Fountain was placed under the most restrictive conditions possible, completely isolated from other inmates. But the impact of his actions lasted decades. He became the symbol of a new kind of threat, not the escape artist or the distant leader, but the man willing to strike under maximum surveillance. Investigators described Fountain as quiet, observant, and patient, waiting for the moment when the system was at its weakest. His danger wasn't just his skill with a weapon, but his mindset. No hesitation, no warning, and complete willingness to carry out the dirtiest orders for his group. Fountain's actions forced the Bureau of Prisons to reconsider how to manage the most violent offenders. The Marion lockdown lasted for decades, and when ADX Florence was built in 1994, one question from that day still echoed. If someone like Fountain appears again, where do we hold him? Clayton A. Fountain died in 2004 at the Springfield Medical Center for federal inmates. Yet to this day, in training programs for correctional staff, his name remains a cautionary example, proof that some individuals cannot be rehabilitated. They can only be completely contained. Number 1. Thomas "Terrible Tom" Silverstein. Most dangerous inmates end up behind bars because of what they did in the outside world. Thomas Edward "Terrible Tom" Silverstein was different. The prison system had to invent a new kind of prison simply because he existed. In the early 1980s, Silverstein was held at USP Marion, the high-security facility that replaced Alcatraz. Marion was designed to be escape-proof and tightly controlled. Yet even there, Silverstein rose to become one of the most feared and heavily restricted inmates in the entire federal system. His conflicts centered on the ongoing war between the Aryan Brotherhood and a rival group known as the DC Blacks. Silverstein wasn't a policymaker or a shot caller. His danger came from something more direct. When he targeted someone, he handled it himself, even knowing the consequences would mean decades more behind bars. It began with the death of a DC Blacks member inside the prison system, which led officials to transfer Silverstein straight into Marion's control unit, the most secure housing at the time, where every door had 2 chains and at least 4 sets of eyes watching. But the extreme isolation didn't contain him. It became his advantage. In September 1982, Silverstein got close to Raymond Cadillac Smith, the powerful leader of the DC Blacks, and fatally attacked him within seconds. The fact that a rival leader could be eliminated inside the most secure unit in the nation sent shockwaves throughout Marion and the entire Bureau of Prisons. Yet that still wasn't Silverstein's limit. On October 22, 1983, he committed an act that would change the history of American corrections. That morning, Silverstein fatally attacked Officer Merle E. Klutz, the very guard assigned to supervise him. Only hours later, another inmate, Clayton Fountain, killed Officer Robert L. Hoffman. 2 correctional officers lost their lives on the same day, in the most secure prison in the federal system, a day that officials once believed could never happen. From that moment on, Marion was placed under permanent lockdown. No open yards, no group activities, just 23 hours of isolation per day. When federal officials later met to design an even more secure model, one that could ensure no inmate could ever repeat what happened in Marion 1983, they used that event as the blueprint. The result was ADX Florence, the first true Supermax prison in the United States, built for inmates whose mere existence posed a threat. Silverstein spent nearly the rest of his life in solitary confinement, classified for years as a no-human-contact prisoner. He was only allowed out of his cell for medical transfers or emergencies. But what made him the most dangerous wasn't just the number of lives lost. It was the fact that one man's actions forced an entire nation to redesign how it held its most violent prisoners. Thomas "Terrible Tom" Silverstein died in 2019 after heart surgery. The final door closed on him, but his legacy still stands in concrete and steel. Supermax, the prison model built to contain those whose very existence is considered a threat.